Hello everybody, I am Rue and this is my cozy corner of booktube, Rue with Books. It's no word of a lie to say that classics are books that have definitely stood the test of time across an evolving landscape of literature, owing their popularity to a variety of factors such as accessibility, relatability, the deeper messages found within, and most of all, their power to tell profound stories of characters within a certain time period. A book written in the 1800s will explore what would be important to a character in the 1800s, what their life was like, what did they wear, what did they eat. They give us a glimpse into the past, so aside from the important messages, they also serve as a bit of a historical catalogue. Classic books also tend to be a little bit challenging. They were written in another time for a completely different audience, and so you kind of have to just put on your historical lenses to understand why this book was written, who it was written for. So picking up a classic is always challenging, but can also be incredibly rewarding. It makes one feel like quite the intellectual. I do make an effort to pick up a classic every once in a while, whether that is through my local library or just searching public domain, or maybe even a chance encounter at a train station. Classic books enrich my reading by challenging me, but they can also definitely entertain. In this video, I will be talking about 10 classic books that I want to read within my lifetime. I likely won't sprint to the finish and binge these. I find that reading classics back to back is rather painful. It's better to just sprinkle them in here and there in between other reads, at least it is so for me. I hope that maybe 10 years after I post this video, I will have gotten around to reading the lot. Today's question is, what is your favorite classic? Let me know in the comment section below. This list also isn't in any particular order, so number 1 or 10 are not the ones I'm most excited for. This is just a list of classic books that I want to read in my lifetime, no rankings in particular. Before I get around to it, be sure to press the like button to show your support for me and help push my videos via the good old-fashioned algorithm. If you like books, booktube and booktube content, be sure to press the subscribe button to get more of my content in your YouTube feed every single week. Be sure to grab a nice hot beverage, something like a tea or a coffee, just as the classical authors of the past may have done before a long, intense writing session, because caffeine is one hell of a drug. Anyway, without any further ado, here are 10 classics that I want to read within my lifetime. Ray Bradbury is an absolute icon. Known mostly for his novel Fahrenheit 451, which as far as I'm aware tackles censorship, a very powerful and important topic, Something Wicked This Way Comes is a very different story of a completely different genre, but equally celebrated by horror fans for being a truly terrifying book that inspires horrifying imagination for its readers. This Goodreads summary does not say much about the plot. I think it's one of those books in which you got to strap in and just enjoy the ride, because you can't say much without giving a lot of stuff away. A lot of the enjoyment can be attributed to discovery. Something Wicked This Way Comes uses the stranger comes to town trope. Cougar in Dark's Pandemonium Dark show comes to Greentown, Illinois to destroy every life touched by its strange and terrible mystery. The show promises some very, very alluring rewards to its participants, and the two boys, our main characters, discover the secrets of its smoke, mazes, and mirrors, who end up learning that sometimes, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and now it's probably time to deal with the consequences. Gosh, paraphrasing that was hard. You can go ahead and read the Goodreads summary, maybe it will do a little bit more for you. I think I'm really drawn into circuses as a setting because of the mystique, the bond between the members of the circus troupe, the magic they inspire in their audience. They can be used to mess with people who don't like clowns, but this book sounds like it takes it in a far more sinister and deadly direction. I first discovered my love of circus-based books, especially horror ones, when I read Darren Shan's Cirque du Freak as a child. all the various acts, how the characters ended up intertwined in a sinister plot. Madame Octa, that damned spider, it just gripped me entirely. I hope that this book will inspire some similar emotions as Cirque du Freak did. Give me some nostalgia, give me a damn good story about circuses and scare the absolute pants off me. I'm so excited to learn about all of the secrets and uncover the mysteries of the Shadow Show. Nothing gets the blood pumping like a gritty, depressing dystopian book. Strange coincidence that the first two books on this list are both by Ray Bradbury, and that wasn't planned or intended, it's just how it came out. This book is set in a world where books are banned and people kind of just tune their brains off and watch television instead. As it's a dystopian, I kind of assume that what is actually on TV is likely to be state propaganda, brainwashing its citizens while keeping them entertained. Watching TV in this world is very commonplace, a very commonplace pastime, so I'm sure that most citizens think very highly of this corrupt government. This book follows Guy Montag, a fireman, whose job it is to go around and burn books because they are illegal. And there you go, his job is essentially to eradicate knowledge. This is such a terrifying premise in a dystopian because it eliminates the risk of knowledge that the government is doing bad stuff. Whatever they are saying may be contradictory to what's in books. You get it? So it kind of reduces the risk of rebellion, revolt against the state, and just the idea of eradicating knowledge that people have spent so much time in writing to share with one another. It's pretty chilling stuff. The name of this book refers specifically to the temperature at which paper burns, which is a cool touch that shows that Ray Bradbury really thought things through. Anyway, Guy never really questions why he is doing what he's doing, being prone himself to state propaganda, and after a hard shift of burning books and getting the bag, he returns to his wife Mildred, who just tends to relax and watch some TV, having her own TV family. I don't really know what that means, but I'm excited to find out. Eventually, Guy meets his eccentric neighbor, Clarice, who tells him about back in the day when people didn't live in constant fear, it wasn't the normal, and people saw the world beyond their own experiences by the ideas presented in books. This causes Guy to question his job, why he is doing it, and basically this encounter, this maybe chance encounter, completely turns the world on its head for Guy Montag. This is a powerful book about ideas, destruction of ideas, removing a medium in which people can convey ideas to one another in a long-form, well-thought-out way. It's a warning to humanity, and it's a book that is bound to chill me to my core. Count me excited to pick this one up. Being only about 250 pages long, this is a short and sweet novel that is bound to pack a tremendous punch. Next up, we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And this book is a dashing romance novel which describes the critical flaws in its two main characters, Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy, within its title, those being Pride and Prejudice. A funny little anecdote is that when I was flying to go on holiday, I wanted some entertainment that didn't require internet. I don't have any handheld consoles, so those were out of the option. And so I scoured Project Gutenberg for public domain books and decided to pick up Pride and Prejudice. I read maybe 20 or 30% of the book and I really enjoyed it. But as I wasn't really a reader back then, I never felt that allure to pick it back up. This was a few years ago when I wasn't even into the young adult books back then. So either way, this is a book that is on my TBR and I will get around to finishing it one day. Obviously, because I started it so long ago, I will start from scratch at 1% of the way into the book. But that is okay. I need to remind myself, and I remember enjoying it, so hopefully I should enjoy it again. Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy have to overcome their central flaws to be able to fall in love and eventually marry one another. This book was published all the way back in 1813, and back then Jane Austen wrote anonymously. But it goes to show that enemies to lovers, a trope that has remained popular and is truly flourishing today, is actually a tale as old as time. I have heard that this book thrives on its character's development, and Jane Austen is a master at writing with humor and wit, and those are two things that I really truly love. So this is definitely a classic that should be theoretically completely up my street. As I previously mentioned, I read part of this a few years ago and enjoyed it. So as an avid reader now, this should be a walk in the park. One of the themes of this book I haven't touched on yet is the way in which love is portrayed in this book goes against the social norms of the time. These two characters, they fall in love over the course of the book, and they actually marry for love rather than political, financial, or social gain. This goes back to the point that classics can shed a light on what was normal at the time in which those books were written. I'm excited to pick up this much beloved work of literature, fall in love with its characters just as Elizabeth falls in love with Mr. Darcy, or vice versa. Jane Austen's famous wit is calling me, and one day I will pick up the phone. I think a lot of people have seen this book in real life because of the 3D effect on the cover, and the fact that new copies today still come with the 3D glasses to experience the effect. It's very gimmicky, but super cool either way. Brave New World is the second dystopian novel on this list, and very, very different to Fahrenheit 451. While Fahrenheit 451 is more about modern-ish technology with TVs and the destruction of knowledge to keep people uninformed and in kind of like a primitive state, Brave New World is a sci-fi dystopian that goes very, very hard on the sci-fi elements using themes of reproductive technology, sleep learning, psychological manipulation, and classical conditioning under a sci-fi lens. Brave New World explores a world in which humanity is kept docile, therefore not challenging the government and overthrowing the dystopian regime through a use of various elements such as genetic engineering, social conditioning, consumerism, sexual promiscuity, and a dopamine-ushering drug called soma. It's a powerful novel in today's age where the comforts of modern life kind of dull people's willingness to act, protest, fight back against the regimes that enslave them. And it's a book that more of us actually should read. It's a book that has been challenged and banned numerous times, so it goes to show that maybe it's worth giving a read. It's the kind of book that would be on the top 5 books to burn in Fahrenheit 451. Anyway, this book follows John the Savage, which is a hilarious character name. He is the only person willing to stand up and fight against this dystopia. I'm sure this novel is going to be thought-provoking, thrilling and highly engaging. Being only 290 pages long, I'm sure this is going to be an intellectually dense, highly engaging read, and I'm very, very excited to pick this up one day and dissect its ideas for myself. This is the first piece of Russian literature I have ever included in one of my videos, that being Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Oh my gosh, hard to say. These kinds of lists are quite good at finding holes in my reading, and I haven't ever really thought about it, but it does go to show there is a massive gap in my reading for Russian literature. Crime and Punishment follows Raskolnikov, a desperate former student who begins the story just, going about, strutting around, walking through the slums of St. Petersburg. Everybody has that devil on their shoulder, that morbid curiosity or morbid imagination where it's kind of like, what if I did this horrible thing to this person right now? Well, the devil on his shoulder wins out and Raskolnikov commits a random murder without remorse or regret. Raskolnikov faces some illusions of grandeur, with a despicably high ego, imagining himself to be a great man, akin to somebody such as Napoleon, where within the confines of his life, he is acting for a higher purpose beyond conventional moral law. It sounds like he's a very, very interesting character that over the course of this book, it's going to really, really just explore his psychology, and I'm very, very much into that. Obviously, his murder is discovered, but who done it? Nobody knows. Raskolnikov ends up finding himself in a cat and mouse game with Porfiry, the detective who finds himself on the case. Over the course of this cat and mouse game, Raskolnikov's conscience starts developing and actually exists. Wow. Character development, am I right, guys? And he finds that the noose of guilt starts tightening over his neck. A downtrodden prostitute, Sonia, offers Raskolnikov the chance at redemption. What this chance is, I have no blimmin' idea. But as the investigation continues and the true identity of the murder is revealed, who we know because it's mentioned in the blurb and probably like the very first few pages of the book, Dostoevsky evokes a world where the lines between innocence and corruption, good and evil blur, and everybody's faith in humanity is tested. Wow, doesn't this book sound exciting? Immediately, this kind of summary makes me think of Death Note. Maybe Death Note was inspired by this book. Both follow a character who commit murder and think what they are doing is morally just in some weird, morbid way, and a cat and mouse game between themselves and a highly intelligent detective break out. This book sounds very exciting. I think it's the kind of book in which there is going to be a very powerful, well-written character voice. If it's anything as good as Stephen King's character voice, it's going to be absolutely fantastic because I really, really enjoy that kind of presence, that tone that kind of very expansive, bold, vivid character voice does present. And I'm sure there's going to be some very great character progression. It kind of is alluded to with the line that the noose of guilt tightens around Raskolnikov's neck. It turns the murder mystery on its head by giving us the murderer right from the start and giving us his perspective, while keeping the drama and thrill of solving a case existent. I love psychological books, and this should be an absolutely brilliant one, having stood the test of time as a very classic novel. Another one of the holes in my reading is for the dark academia genre. I have read Catabases by Ira Kwong, but that book kind of uses dark academia mostly as context, being a bit pretentious but maybe not going all the way in. The Secret History is a book that is a pioneer of the genre, and in some senses it's practically required reading if you like books, especially dark academia. The Secret History follows a group of clever, eccentric misfits under the tutelage of their charismatic classics professor as they discover a way of thinking and living that is vastly different to other people in their age bracket or social class, that kind of thing. Eventually, these characters make a terrible decision that they can't take back, and they gradually slip into obsession, corruption, betrayal, and ultimately evil. One of the reasons this book is so highly beloved is for its psychological depth. Once again, I absolutely love psychological books, so this sounds very, very much up my alley. In fact, my favorite horror book is Misery by Stephen King because it absolutely thrives on the psychological elements. Anyway, The Secret History explores themes such as fitting in and how far one will go to do so, while being praised for its dark academia aesthetic, accessibility, immersive atmosphere, and psychological nuance. It follows a similar structure to Crime and Punishment, where the bad thing immediately happens and we are left to kind of see the repercussions of the bad thing for the rest of the novel. I don't have much more to say on this one, except that it sounds like it should be a very, very gripping read. As per usual, I'm definitely very excited to pick this one up. Most people already know this, but The Count of Monte Cristo is the most popular and highly regarded revenge tale ever written. Aside from the theme, it's also known as being an absolutely colossal work of over 1,000 pages. It's got to be one hell of a slow burn revenge, but people sing this book's praises all of the time, and I'm sure that the time investment is absolutely worth it by the climax of his revenge. Anyway, what is this book actually about? Well, it follows Edmond Dantes, who is thrown in prison for a crime he did not commit. He has a lot of time while in prison to think things through, and essentially the more time he spends locked up behind bars, the kind of more his spite and anger and desire for revenge grow, because obviously something very, very unjust has happened to him. One day, Edmond Dantes hears about a great hoard of treasure hidden in the Isle of Monte Cristo. And he becomes determined to, first of all, escape prison, secondly, to find the treasure, and thirdly, to use this treasure to kind of plot against the three men responsible for him being locked up in prison. Alexandre Dumas was inspired to write this story through a real-life wrongful imprisonment, which sounds interesting, as the kind of passion something like that can evoke in a person must be a great motivator to write an absolutely fantastic novel and to kind of do the theme justice. This book is highly beloved because it's a very accessible classic, apart from maybe its length putting some people off. It features masterful plotting, being a book with suspense and brilliant character writing, features an unforgettable character arc exploring the escape, plotting, and revenge of Edmond Dantes, who supposedly is a little bit of an underdog. It is also highly regarded for its deep emotional stakes, with intense themes of justice, betrayal, morality, and ultimate hope that can really keep a reader gripped and at the edge of their seat. I've been reading some pretty long novels recently, so I don't plan to pick this up anytime soon, but I'm definitely excited to read this one day, experience for myself what makes it so popular. I just need to find the right time to do so. Anyway, just reading the blurb makes me want to read it. It's so annoying. Ugh. Next up is another ridiculously long book, and this one is just about ridiculously longer than The Count of Monte Cristo, being about 100 pages longer. That is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This book, according to Goodreads, is a thrilling tale of narrow escapes, romance in the midst of revolution, and battlefield heroism. This book is set within the confines of the Parisian underworld, and it follows the main character, Jean Valjean. Jean Valjean served 19 years in prison for stealing bread, and he has a real Robin Hood story afterwards in which he kind of serves to help the poor and the downtrodden. However, around every corner, every nook and every cranny, the dogged policeman, Inspector Jean Vert, aims to thwart Jean's every move. That already sounds very, very infuriating, and I expect to get very emotional while reading this. Inspector Jean Vert's relentless pursuit of a reformed criminal reflects a morally empty state that values retribution rather than justice. And kind of extending from that, it sounds like a real injustice because somebody is actually doing stuff to help the people. And all just for the petty crime of stealing bread. It just makes me feel so angry thinking about it. I'm going to speed things up a bit and rip this next extract straight from the Goodreads summary. One of the first modern novels, brackets, it's actually still a classic, Les Miserables took the unprecedented step of featuring a working-class hero and examining society's role in fostering crime and criminal behavior. Its portrait of altruism in the face of misery, poverty, and injustice is memorable for its vivid characterizations and its gripping plot, which unfolds in the manner of a detective story. An instant success around the world upon its initial publication, the book has inspired countless dramatic adaptations, including one of the world's longest-running musicals, and is routinely ranked among the top 100 novels of all time. This book sounds like it might get me worked up in a similar way that Frankenstein did, which is a compliment because my anger at Frankenstein, the human, in that book is what made me absolutely love it. Replace that discontent with Inspector Jan Vert instead in this case, and I will be shaking my fist angrily at the sky as I read. This book sounds gripping, it sounds immersive, it sounds like it will kind of be built up with suspense. I'm also very interested in kind of exploring the setting of the Parisian underworld. I've never read a book that has done so. This is all a very winning combination, and in the same vein as Count of Monte Cristo, the fact that I don't plan to pick it up soon doesn't mean I'm not excited to read it. I just need to find the right time to do so because it is obscenely long. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy is a historical fiction novel set around the time of the Napoleonic invasion of Russia in 1812. This book follows three characters. First up is Pierre Bezukhov, the illegitimate son of a count who kind of works on a couple of missions simultaneously. The first is to become the claimant of his father's inheritance. Secondly, to obtain spiritual fulfillment. And how he will accomplish the second goal, I have no idea, we are yet to see. The second character is Prince Andrei Bolkonsky, who leaves his family to go fight against Napoleon and his forces. The third character is Natasha Rostov, a beautiful daughter of a nobleman who both of the previous characters have become very, very intrigued in. As Napoleon's army invades, it follows a diverse cast of characters such as peasants, nobility, and soldiers as they struggle against problems that are very unique to their era. It's supposedly a very moving, very human story. So the thing that I gained the most out of that is that it focuses on what it means to be human, or shaping these very real, very vibrant characters in the midst of absolute chaos, violence, and horror. This leads me to speculate that this is a very character-focused story, looking at the actions of all of these very different people while they struggle against these absolutely horrific, real issues, showing humanity, kindness, and compassion. I could be totally wrong, but if this is the case, it could be the kind of book that really, really pulls at your emotional strings. I can really mess with that. Crime and Punishment sounds absolutely brilliant for some Russian literature, but this sounds much, much more up my alley. A human story with richly written characters. I haven't even started reading yet, but I already feel invested. It's a very long book at about 1,400 pages, but I'll have to dive into this one way or another someday. It's kind of crazy that it's taken me as far as the final book on my list to feature a novel by the great Charles Dickens, probably one of the most famous authors on the list. If I mentioned Leo Tolstoy or Victor Hugo to a random person on the street, they probably wouldn't have any idea who I'm talking about. But if I mention Charles Dickens, well, let's say I'm turning some heads. Great Expectations is a novel set within the Victorian era, and it follows Pip from childhood to his painful experiences of early adulthood. Pip moves from the Kent marshes to commercial parts of London, and along the way he meets some very interesting, intriguing characters such as Mag Witch, the escaped convict, and Miss Havisham, who is locked up with her unhappy past and lives with her ward, the beautiful but arrogant Estella. This book is a bit of an exploration of Pip as he discovers himself throughout this novel, his own set of principles and values. It explores whether his principles would allow him to flourish and prosper in the world of Victorian England, or if he will be left in the gutter, achieving and accomplishing practically nothing and not becoming a great man despite the great expectations. This book explores themes of social class, ambition, and personal growth, and I'm very, very excited to see whether Pip will make it, or if, he won't. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed both the video and your delicious beverage. If you have made it this far, I hope that no policeman continuously thwarts your altruism today. So there we go, guys. That's my list of 10 classic books that I need to read within my lifetime. I hope that you found this video interesting, and maybe that you'll be adding just 1 or 2 of these books to your TBR. Reading classics can be challenging, but if you stick to it, it can also be an incredibly rewarding experience. I think drafting this video was a wonderful experience as I got to do my own research into these books and start getting excited by their plot, their themes and such. If you haven't done so already, press the like button, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment in regards to today's question or what you're currently reading or maybe what you read last. I reply to all of my comments, so I would love to have a chat with you below. If you would like to connect with me outside of YouTube, I have links in the description below for my Goodreads, my TikTok, my Instagram, and my Storygraph. Anyway, until next time, Root out.